Today we're taking a look at Chainlink's Link coin, performing some technical analysis and making some predictions on where we can expect to see Link go in the near future. Let's get into it. Welcome into Chainlink's Link coin chart, guys. If you'd like to buy Link or want some free Bitcoin, there are a couple of links down in the description of today's video. Now, this is not a crypto we have covered in the past. So zooming out, you can see it has had an absolutely stellar run, going from basically 0.4 or 40 cents all the way up to its peak, which was over here back in its heydays. Of course, that was in May of 2021, up to a high of $52.99. So the gains people were seeing, if they were in it back over here, we're talking about 100 times. So when you have leaps this big in what I'd say is quite a short period of time, you are of course obviously going to see the crashes after that and the consolidation that needs to occur. Now, Chainlink itself, in my opinion, has been traveling downwards for a long period of time. What we saw was a bit of a head and shoulders pattern here. Although wonky, it is still a head and shoulders pattern, which is basically indicating that this uptrend we had seen from down here in July of 2021 was timing to come for an end. So of course we are continuing a move downwards. So all in all, let's try and establish, I suppose, a few patterns and see if we can work out exactly where we're sitting from an overall perspective. Now, let's see, I suppose, taking this high point over here of the 10th of November, if we can establish immediately a bit of a trend. So that's our highest point since we've been trending downwards. Now, what do we need to do? Well, we need to try and establish the top end of the downtrend. Now, this is going to be relatively hard to do, I'd suggest. Do we start with that point? Maybe not. Maybe we should be starting over here with our overall high. Let's try and chuck that in, see where we can go. That, in my opinion, is more realistic. And what we're seeing here is the tail ends of a nice little peak going above, no closures really above that point. This is the top end of our current downtrend. Now, if we take this line and have a look where else we can go, is there a bit of a channel that's formed? Well, you could potentially say yes, there is a bit of a channel that we're seeing moving at this point in time in that type of a direction. But is there a bottom line instead that we could use, which would be a good point of support for us? So let's have a look real long term to see if we could establish something like that. And in fact, it looks like we can do exactly that. From this point over here in July of 2020, we can see that this is basically a trend line moving upwards. We've got all the touch points that we need, and right now we are sitting right at the bottom of that. Now, given that this holds up, which it's likely it will, we're going to see probably a bounce off this line and a movement upwards towards the top end of that chart. So really that's a movement back up towards this $19.36 mark. Currently we're sitting at $13, so that is quite a decent jump. Now, of course, ultimately we'd like to see that break, but that won't necessarily be the case. Another, I suppose, key thing supporting this is a reduction in volume. So we're seeing over, I suppose, the past couple of months, a reduction in the volume over here, which means that the sellers are starting to dry up, and it's likely we're going to see a bit of a shift in the trend. Of course, we have been, moving in this direction for quite some time now. So overall, you'd like to see the sellers drying up, but when you zoom out a bit, it's, I suppose, a relatively consistent volume perspective across the board. So moving, I suppose, a bit more granular as we are here, you can see that the sellers are drying up on a shorter term point of view. So really, hopefully, we are going to see a bounce. Our key things that are blocking us at this point in time is number one, our 20-day moving average, and number two, our 50-day moving average. They are sitting respectively at $13.80 and $15.30. So We need to be able to bounce off this bottom line right here, which is sitting at $12.60, and then get through these two and start moving in the right direction. Let's have a quick look at a few more indicators as well. First and foremost, RSI. The RSI is sitting relatively even. It's sitting at 42. So there's plenty of room for us to move in an upwards direction, but we could continue trending sideways or downwards as well. We're not anywhere near the oversold range. So really, this is not an indicator that's going to help us at this point. MACD. Let's have a look at this one. The MACD is interesting actually. You can see typically we've had quite large swings when it comes to this crypto, whereas now we're seeing a bit of consolidation actually occur. In my opinion, the reason for this is because we have this long-term trend really coming up now, and the top end of our downtrend is getting tight. It's getting close. So we're getting a bit of a price squeeze, and people are realizing that, hey, maybe it's going to be the point where we see a bit of a reversal in Link. And that is really apparent when we do zoom in on the MACD. And you can see that basically on a daily basis, we're having the cross of the 12-day and 26-day EMAs against each other. Whilst yes, it's hovering basically in the green, I suppose, for the past week or so, it's flip-flopping fairly regularly at this point in time. So all in all, the MACD is not helpful for us for, I suppose, charting price direction, but what it is showing us is for the first time there is indecision when it comes to this coin. So that in itself is quite interesting. So overall, what is my prediction? Well, I really do think we are going to bounce off the bottom end of our long-term trend. That is the likely situation, and hopefully start moving back up towards this key point up here, a key resistance point from our short, or I suppose shorter term downtrend. It's actually quite long. It's been going since basically the middle of 2021 or even earlier than that, but we're going to go up towards that point. And ideally what we'd like to see, if that does manage to occur, is of course the 20-day moving average crossing above the 26-day moving average. So on that basis, I'd be suggesting my price prediction for this video is probably around the $18.50 mark, hopefully a little bit higher. That wraps up today's analysis of Chainlink's Link coin. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments section below. Of course, if you did enjoy today's analysis, make sure you do leave a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of this sort of content, make sure you leave a subscribe and of course turn on those bell notifications. I'll leave it there for today, guys. I hope you have an awesome day. I'll see you next time. Cheers.